the Marvel Legends Eternals Gilgamesh Build-A-Figure Wave. Let's take a look at the characters behind the characters these figures are based on. Next up, Sprite. Let's talk about it.
MBB on the track.
So what we have on the rotating platter here is the Marvel Legends Eternals Wave Sprite, taken from the movie of the same name, Eternals. That'll be coming out very soon here. What we're going to do today is take a look into the background of her counterpart from the 616, the comic book universe, just to get some little insight into what the character Sprite is about. So without further ado, let's get into it. Before we even get started on Sprite herself, let's talk about the Eternals. They were created by Jack Kirby back in 1976. Their first issue, issue 1, came out in April of that same year. Sprite's first appearance was she didn't make an appearance until issue 9 of that same year. That came out in December, if I'm not mistaken, and she was a he back then, so need to keep that in mind. Sprite's, in terms of relatives, she's Cersei's cousin. She's an Eternal, so she was created, or at least the race was created, by the Celestials about 1 million years ago. She's probably a second or third generation Eternal, but she's still extremely old, hundreds of thousands of years old. And that's wild because despite being as old as she is, Sprite has maintained the appearance of a pre-adolescent, well, boy, could be girl. The wild thing about Eternals is that they can change their gender. I guess it depends. I don't know if there's some sort of time frame. Some have done it in like 20 years. Some have done it in 250, 2,000. Whenever they feel like they just, I don't even know how, how that even goes down, that process. But they can swap genders. And they basically came up with that. That's a recent development. They came up with that because of the Eternals movie. If there was any question regarding which came first, the chicken or the egg, in other words, the gender swaps, did Marvel swap genders first, or did the producers swap genders for the movie? Well, the answer is the producers did it first, and Marvel, doing what Marvel does, because they don't want to confuse new fans, the casual moviegoer, what have you, they end up altering their character to accommodate the character that's in film. And the Eternals aren't the first time they've done it. Yeah, they've gender swapped, they've ethnicity swapped, i.e. Heimdall from the Thor franchise. It goes as far back as Hulk from the first from the Ang Lee movie. I think that was in 2005. Ang Lee, for some reason, thought the only way he could convey the Hulk getting stronger is to make him get bigger. So by the middle of the movie, the Hulk was literally 20 feet tall, which is ridiculous. But of course, Marvel, not wanting to confuse the moviegoer, started having the Hulk drawn that big. So they've done that. They did the same thing with Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. If you recall, that version of Spider-Man was able to biologically produce webbing. So they came up with a storyline. Marvel, the comics I'm talking about, came up with a storyline that altered Spider-Man, so that way Parker was doing the same thing in the comics. So it isn't the first time that that's happened, but we've got it going on now with the Eternals. They've gender swapped 3 characters, and one of those characters they even did an ethnicity swap, and that's Makari, and we'll talk about her very soon. But in terms of getting back to Sprite, the wild thing about Sprite is, and something must have gone down 100,000 years ago, but Sprite has mainly maintained the appearance of a pre-adolescent for like ever. As far as the comics are concerned, she's about the age, about 11 years old, about the appearance of an 11-year-old child, formerly boy, now girl. And she's regarded as the trickster of the Eternals. You know, she's basically the Eternals equivalent of a young Loki. So you got that. So that's how it goes out. Once again, I can't tell you why Sprite is, despite being an Eternal and thousands of years old, why she maintains the appearance of an 11-year-old child. But I guess it is what it is. Always got to get that in. Like other Eternals, though, that didn't stop Sprite. She's been, or he, back then, has been an influence throughout human history. Characters like Puck from Shakespeare, Peter Pan, and a few others were created because Sprite was seen by various creators. The creator of Peter Pan was inspired by Sprite because he caught Sprite levitating. So Marvel has always managed to insinuate the Eternals into human history as a way of explaining some of the events that have occurred. In a story that was retro back to 1906, they did this story later, but the reason this is a retro story is because they were trying to set a Sprite story later, so they did this retroactively. And what this is back in the year was 1906, during the San Francisco earthquake, the Dreaming Celestial Chamber, which was probably from the third host leftover, or the Dreaming Celestial, I believe, is around all the time. But anyway, the Dreaming Celestial's chamber was damaged, and the Eternals, they formed a Unimind to repair it. And it was during this time that Sprite figured out that he could use the Celestial's power to change his life so he could grow up. So that kind of sort of leads credence to something went down that is preventing Sprite from growing up. He's maintaining a childlike appearance against his/her will. So anyway, he came up with some sort of long-range plan to do so back then. So you fast forward to modern times, and now we're going to issue 9, volume 1 of the Eternals book, which was Sprite's first appearance, which was during the coming of the Celestial's fourth host. At that time, the Eternals formed a Unimind to commune with the Celestials, but Sprite didn't commune. He stayed behind. He saw a deviant ship attempting to crash into the Celestial ship, so he woke up the Forgotten One, who was like a guardian for the Celestials. The Forgotten One is Gilgamesh, though at the time he was unnamed. He was just known as the Forgotten One. And he basically wore a full suit. You couldn't even see his face. And if I recall, he became the Forgotten One. He also did something wrong and was punished, and that's why he ended up becoming the Forgotten One. But anyway, the whole deviant trying to crash their ship into the celestial ship got thwarted by the Forgotten One. But for some reason, like I said, Gilgamesh, the Forgotten One, really must have done something to really piss off Zeus. I said Zeus, Zurus, and so Zurus was still, angry at him, or didn't think that his penance was served, and because Sprite awakened him, despite the fact that it was for the best of intentions, she was not on Zerus's good side either. So he punished both of them by having them, they had to, quote unquote, keep an eye on one another, keep one another out of trouble, so to speak. Sometime later, Sprite had pushed his plan into gear by erasing all the Eternals' memories. And that's because he figured this would allow him to grow up. The plan was undone, and as punishment, this time Zerus wasn't messing around. Zerus deleted, YouTube friendly here, deleted Sprite after the event that led the Eternals mass self-deletion. That was the whole Horde conflict. Sprite was resurrected and came back as a girl. So that's how Sprite got changed into female. Obviously, the movie, especially due to conditions that we've been going through for the past year and a half plus, the movie was produced a couple years ago, and Marvel already knew what the studio was intending with the gender swaps. So they went on and came up with their own thing. And this is how they were able to conveniently incorporate the gender swapping narrative into the books. So, Sprite came back as a girl, and that precipitated their most recent event, the Eternals' most recent event, that dealt with Thanos and the exclusion event. The exclusion is the process by which the Eternals are resurrected. And it was during this entire event, it was discovered that in order for Eternals to come back, it costs human lives. So Sprite and a bunch of other Eternals, they were not with that. So they petitioned Zerus to do away with that process. Zerus refused. He decreed that process is going to continue on. So that didn't sit well with Sprite, Icarus, Cersei. Cersei actually kind of sort of knew already, but basically went along with it. Athena wasn't down. Phastos was behind it. He's the one that was behind that entire event. So what the Eternals did, a group of them, they went to the Deviant Kingdom and petitioned them for aid in how to become deviants themselves. So even though Sprite has been around since 1976, he/she hasn't really been involved very often in many of the Eternals adventures. Most of the time in the background, comic relief in most cases. That's basically Sprite's story. As far as her power set, because of the cosmic energy that powers them, all the Eternals can basically do the same things. They just focus on whatever interests them the most, most of the time, most of them. Sprite has the same basic abilities that all Eternals have. In other words, she's immortal. She has a level of invulnerability and can regenerate. She has telepathy. She's got telekinesis. She can transmute matter, and she's almost as powerful at Cersei at doing this. And Cersei is by far the most powerful Eternal at doing it. So that means that Sprite is something else. I wonder how that'll translate in the movie. Illusion casting. I believe that her illusion casting is top notch. On a scale of 1 to 5, they got her as a 5. So yeah, she's probably the most powerful illusion caster, despite her quote unquote youthful appearance of the Eternals. She's super strong, undetermined amount how strong she is, but she can lift several tons, and that's before she utilizes telekinesis to assist in lifting, and she can fly undetermined, miles per hour. Just that she can fly. She could probably fly at least 500 mph. I believe she can shoot concussive blasts from her eyes and hands like all the other Eternals, but I don't recall ever seeing her do so. But I'm quite sure she can, and she can also teleport. So that's basically the power set of Sprite. What we're going to do now is I'll go over the articulation. I'm not going to get too in deep to that. As always with these Eternal figures, if you want to check out a more in-depth review, take a deep dive into articulation, paint apps, and everything else more detailed, I will turn you to MCU Collector 24. I'll put a link to his video on Sprite's review in the description below, and you can go over there and he'll definitely get into it. He's got the entire Eternals wave, including the exclusives, that being Thena, Ajax, and Crow, and he's got all of those reviews up. So as I go along here, I'll be putting in my description links to the various reviews of the individual characters. So let's get Sprite off the platter and see what she's about. So we've got Sprite in hand now, and once again taking a look at the costumes of all of these Eternals. I tell you, you can understand why they don't come with very many accessories. Sprite comes with an extra set of hands, closed fists. All of the Eternals come with an additional pair of hands. And not much else. Icarus came with another head sculpt showing his eyes powered up, but not much else from the other figures. But anyway, as far as Sprite is concerned, once again, looking at the costume, I'm telling you, it's these costumes are works of art. It's a shame that a lot of people just aren't really feeling the Eternals, but that's because they're unfamiliar with them, or if they're actual comic readers, they're so far removed from what Marvel comic readers know that they kind of sort of aren't feeling these characters either. But you can't take away from the deco, the uniforms with the detail. It's just incredible there when you see the line work and the colors. Sprite, she's mostly silver with I want to say, I'm gonna call it, it's not really teal, but it's close to it. I mean, it's a great color combination, and she's got that the details in her legs down to her calves, and she's got that silver metallic look throughout. The hands are shoulder blades. That on the rear there, it's pretty nice. As far as the actual articulation, her head is on a dumbbell joint, so you can get crazy attitude, and you can tilt this big melon of a head that she has. And yes, her head is big because she has a short haircut. She can look up that much. She can look down that much. And like I said, she's got the rotation, and she can get good attitude with that. Arms can go more than 90 degrees, which is cool. You've got the 360-degree rotation at the shoulders. Single jointed elbow with no bicep swivel, and it swivels at the elbow, and she has wrist hinge and rotation. You've got to do the articulation is at the ab crunch, or diaphragm crunch, I should say. You can't get much going forward. Decent amount going back. no waist articulation as is standard with female figures. Hasbro really needs to get on that. She can do the splits that much. She can kick out decently, more than 90. Kick back, pretty decent also. She's got thigh rotation, double jointed knees, no calf rotation. She can point her toe down that much, up that much. She's got ankle pivot, and she's got holes on the bottom of her feet. So to sum it all up, there we have it. We just took a look into the 616 version of Sprite, the counterpart to the MCU's version, whom this action figure is based on. Get a little idea. Sprite's been around for quite a long time, but hasn't really done too much. Once again, the two pivotal points in Sprite's history are the exclusion event and the horde event. And other than that, not much. You know, she had a gender swap change, and we discussed how that came to be, both how the comics portrayed it and the reason behind the comics doing so because of the movie. Once again, if you want to get if you want to see a more detailed review of the action figure itself, I turn you to MCU Collector 24. I will have a link to his video in the description below. You can go over there and see what's what with the action figure. Very detailed reviews. Shout out to MCU Collector 24. And yeah, that's about it. It's time to get up out of here, good people. Thank you for rocking with me. Please remember to like and subscribe and to share. Let's not forget about that. And smash that bell so you can be notified when I upload another video. Until the next time, my peeps, remember, the hunt continues. And I'm out. Peace.